Welcome to Missed Opportunities for Good, the podcast where we open up the space to have conversations about trends and campaigns at the intersection of marketing, advertising, and impact.
Hi, I'm Alana Ficalora.
Hi, I'm Steph Belsky.
We're social impact strategists, colleagues, and friends who are on a mission to revolutionize the industry we love.
Today, there's a lot of virtue signaling, greenwashing, cause washing, or companies saying nothing out of fear of getting it wrong.
Whether it's a moment or a movement, it still has to be real. It has to be authentic and aligned with the brand, not just performative. It's about the action being taken that goes along with the messaging.
So we're here to highlight who's doing it well, what could be better, and how companies can stop leaving money and the potential for real social change on the table.
Our guest today on Creative Conversations is Katie White, VP Account and Sustainability Director at the Martin Agency, who's more affectionately known as the Lorax of the agency.
The Lorax.
Love that
I
so
just
much.
love that. The Martin Agency's mission is to fight invisibility. Katie has taken up the challenge to fight our seemingly invisible impact on the planet, seeking to reduce the agency's footprint and help brands navigate the changing climate by infusing sustainable thinking throughout the creative process. Katie has supported industry change in the sustainability space by launching open source tools like the Sustainability Tension Map, and also sits on the advisory board of Green the Bid, championing low impact productions like executing zero waste sets, carbon tracking and offsetting, and sustainable travel protocols. And yes, we love Green the Bid, so yay.
We bring them up any opportunity we can because obviously.
Every opportunity.
So welcome to Missed Opportunities for Good, Katie.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be on the podcast with y'all.
Absolutely.
So
Let's
excited
get
you're
to
here.
know you a bit better. The first question we love to ask our guests is, why do you do what you do without saying what you do?
I know, and I love that question. It's kind of hard not to talk about what you do, but I think I do what I do because I think a lot about the future. I'm a dreamer, a planner for myself and for others, whether they want to be planned for or not. I'm always planning my next trip, opportunity, ambition. And frankly, I've been extremely fortunate to have traveled a lot, and I just took in the world's beauty and what nature brings to us. So as I plan for the future, I want others, particularly my children, to be able to enjoy and learn and grow from the natural world just as I have. So that's, I think, what drives me to do what I do.
Love that.
I love that. And now I want to ask 400 questions about travel, but that's not the point of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Sustainable travel, of course.
Like, what's your next trip? What's your favorite place to go? Yeah. Also, sustainable travel, I mean, it's like there's a whole conversation there too. I mean, we could sidebar.
Well, I will say I do bring, half of my trips are ecotourism, which there's some pros and cons to ecotourism, but Kenya is one of my favorite places.
Amazing.
I just love the people there. They're so kind. And then the natural world is so foreign to, what it is like in the US.
Yeah.
And then you can't go anywhere without naming Iceland as
Yes.
the land of fire and ice, completely different world as well.
Yes.
And pretty protected and pristine. They've done a great job of managing the influx of travel and the degradation of the landscape, as well as giving people an opportunity to protect and preserve the beauty. So I'm a big fan of Iceland and even their advertising and how they get people to get there.
Iceland is so fascinating. I did a road trip with a friend there, and we did went in one direction and circled around the island, fully missed the Northern Lights, which was really a bummer. But it was amazing to us how in one day, the differences in landscapes that you could see. You thought you were like on space one moment, then you were on top of a glacier, then you're at the edge of the water. Like, it's just amazing how much variance there is in such a small place.
I like to think there's a planet out there that is Iceland.
There's a what? Sorry?
Yeah.
A planet?
I said, yeah, I'd love to think that there's a planet that's just designed just like Iceland.
Yeah.
Half moonscape, half glacier, half,
Yes.
It's beautiful.
And it doesn't feel like you're traveling to so many of these other over-traveled places when you go there. At least it didn't when I was there. We were often the only people.
I was going to say, it might have changed a little bit.
Yeah, that's fair. It's been a few years.
Yeah, it has changed. It's funny. I went there, maybe 10 years ago. And then I actually got engaged in Iceland a few years ago. And then I went with my maid of honor as kind of our, bridesmaids trip just last year. And it has changed quite a bit.
Wow.
The tourism has gotten significant, but again, they're doing a really great job. You mentioned in my bio, the sustainability tension map. One of the tensions on there is destination destroyed. We all have this innate desire to explore and seek and experience new experiences as humans. And yet there's this tension with we're destroying the natural world when we go there, whether that's literally the environment or also the culture. And I think they've done a really nice job of trying to protect that, to educate your relationship and how you relate to the natural world, as well as they have some pretty strong cultures that, elves and different mythical creatures that are also a part of it. And they've educated people so that they're keeping that tradition and culture alive. I think they've done a really good job of allowing people to come visit their beautiful country and landscape without destroying it. I hope it stays the same, even with the new changes they've implemented.
Yeah, totally. No, that makes sense. I mean, it makes me think of like the Great Barrier Reef and how all the tourism there totally had destroyed it. And
that unfortunately, I was a part of that. I did touch a sea turtle and I did touch the coral before I knew enough about my impact.
Totally.
So
yeah. I mean, I went when I was in college.
Hard.
So yeah, same. Didn't realize, understood that there was an effect happening, but didn't realize that I was contributing to it, I guess, in a way. Right. And even same trip going to Uluru, and they're like, don't climb Uluru. The local Aborigines do not want you to climb Uluru because of the sacred protections around it and all of that. But all the tourists just march up. We're like, no, we're going to do it because no one's going to be allowed to do it soon. Do. And you're like, what? This is terrible. Even Machu Picchu, right? All of those have the tension too. And Machu Picchu is by limiting travelers per day. And I think a lot of other places are starting to do things like that too. But
you guys,
it's an interesting place for brands to play in that space. Is that a tension that a brand could tackle where they, especially a tourism brand, we have Royal Caribbean, where they're dependent on the natural world to encourage people to seek and see from the sea. But there's also some serious challenges with that. With travel and more people comes some environmental degradation or cultural degradation. And I think brands that are responsible and depend on the natural world then need to help uplift that and provide education, but also provide opportunities for consumers to engage in that space.
Absolutely.
And we know consumers want it.
Right.
So how do you make it relevant and impactful, not just lip service?
Yeah. And it's risk management on their part, because if you don't get engaged in that conversation, you will have nowhere to travel your consumers to.
Absolutely. It becomes an immediate business problem, not just an opportunity from a cultural or consumer connection.
Yeah.
It's literally their business. Without the natural world, nobody wants to go see the bleached coral reefs. They're not going on that coral excursion.
Totally.
So,
yeah, it's just as important for them to protect the wildlife and the natural environment as it is to sell the tickets on the cruise.
Yes.
Well, I think I know the answer to our next question of what first drew you to Impact. It sounds like travel had a big influence on you and maybe led you to where you are now, but curious to know.
It did. Travel certainly did have an impact, but really it was my dad. Mark White. He's the biggest inspiration for me in this space. From a young age, we were always camping, learning about native and invasive species and traveling, but how to be good stewards of the earth. It's funny, he's both a biology major and he has an MBA in finance. He's a professor at the University of Virginia. He teaches sustainability and finance. And while I do appreciate math and numbers, I'm a lot better with my right side of my brain and creativity and communication. So I think that's why I actually abandoned a hard science degree. I was going to be a marine biologist going into college, but there was way too much physics. So I opted for business degree and a sustainability degree at the same time. I took classes from my dad and I didn't always get an A, which I hate to admit. I got an A-. I took his final, actually, and I had been grading his papers for years. And I thought I saw a pattern in his final exam. False. There was no pattern. So I did not, thankfully he only made it 10% of my grades, so I ended up with an A-. But still, I was inspired by the core challenges that he presented and that we face, particularly the way our current way of consumption is killing us.
Yeah.
You know, it didn't used to be that way. Since the 1950s, really, is when the rise of the convenience economy and advertising, if we're honest.
Right.
We moved to this linear consumption model and built an aspirational world that's unsustainable. So I'm drawn to an impact career, particularly as a calling, because we have to consume differently. Mm-hmm. So as we redefine what our aspiration is, what success looks like, and think and innovate more circularly, that's what we need to do. We can't live in this cowboy economy. We have to live on more of a spaceship economy where we think about the finite resources that we have floating around on this little rock. We have to think about it differently. And I think communication, but particularly advertising, my delusional ambition is I think advertising can save the world.
Oh, that's ours too.
I knew we were going to be fast friends. And maybe it's not so delusional because that song, we didn't start the fire.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
yep.
We did start the fire. And advertising lit the match.
Yeah.
But we also can be part of that solution. So I am, what drives me and what I'm really excited about, again, sparked by my father, is to change what the aspiration is and then work with companies and brands to consume differently, both as brands, but also as consumers. We lead that conversation. And I think while there's lots of ways that I certainly could have had an impact, I could have gone into law, I could have gone into policy or all these different things, ethics. I think business is a huge driver of that. Yeah. And even though there's some necessary evils there, I don't think no one goes out to say, I'm going to go fuck the planet. They're just, to be honest, they're trying to fill consumer needs, but how we fill those needs needs to change.
100%.
So, preach. Oh, I love this.
I like the not safe for work.
Perfect. Also, wasn't that song in one of those Greenpeace ads, the one that had the huge dinner party stuff? Didn't we talk about that on the episode?
Yeah, it wasn't.
It literally
we
started
didn't start
like
the fire though.
Oh, just
it
kidding.
Was like
irrelevant.
It was. Don't stop thinking about tomorrow.
That's what it was.
Oh, also a good one. Yeah.
Also relevant.
Great one, and it was really messed up. The whole. Yeah, well,
have you
have
seen
to go
that?
Read that one.
It was one of Greenpeace always says these like very interesting like ads. Anyways,
Bold.
There's yes,
bold,
and it was almost like this over the top dinner party with like extravagant food and dress and all these things, and this like little fire starts in the kitchen and it starts to spread. And it's people at the dinner party start to become more and more aware of what they're doing and what this culture that's been created is doing, and so. Anyways, we'll find it and send it to you. It's very interesting.
Yeah. I hope it resolves better than Don't Look Up, which I feel like is a very similar thing.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that ended in disaster.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert for those who haven't seen it.
Yeah, for those who haven't seen it. I think we all could have seen that coming from a mile away, but maybe not. But that's where we're at right now. People are waking up to it. The question is, can we get ourselves out of it? I like to think we can. I'm a very much eternal optimist. And I love the Jane Goodall quote, trust that everyone is working on their piece of the puzzle. I just think that's so powerful because I get overwhelmed quite a bit and there's so much to do. Yeah. But it's why I like connecting with people like you all and other like-minded industry professionals, because I think everyone's taken a tiny little piece of the puzzle. And if I can do my part, wonderful. And I hope that then I can just, jigsaw fit. I just hope we're not working on different puzzles. That's
the puzzles match up. Like my daughter's favorite pastime at the moment. She's very into puzzles. Well, I think, and I think this all connects, right? And I think we know what you're going to say here as well. But what issue area are you most passionate about?
Well, so yes, I am very obviously passionate about changing the way we do business. I think right now, sustainability is often relegated to CSR activities, and it's actually a very strong business strategy when executed cross-functionally. I was looking for different stats the other day for some client presentations I had, and there's not a lot of data right now on the impact of sustainability in business. There's a lot of theory and there's a lot of rationale as to why sustainability is good for business, but there's not actually hard data to say this brand did this and this is how it impacted the bottom line.
Right.
But I did find a couple good studies, one particular from Accenture just recently, that uncovered that companies combining innovation with sustainability and trust outperformed competition, generating 3.1% higher operating profits and greater returns for shareholders. So I was like, oh, that's great. Companies that are, bringing in sustainability into innovation practices are actually seeing the return, yet companies that excel at just innovation alone have this negligible impact on operating performance. So I was really heartened by that. And there's a great book called The Solutionists by Solitaire Townsend, I think, that leads Futera. And when I think about what I want to be a solutionist. So I want to inspire others to be as well, an adaptive mind that welcomes change, sees challenges, opportunities, excited by some of those new opportunities, even with our beautiful constraints. And one of the things that I find fascinating, and maybe this is a little bit of a passion point, you can tell I'm very inspired by the natural world. I love talking about biodiversity. But I think innovation inspired by biomimicry is so cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I think I want to be like Jane Goodall one day, or a park ranger, as we talked about earlier. But I'm fascinated by innovation that's inspired by how nature does things. So what can we learn from the evolution of flora and fauna, and how can we apply that to new problems? Obviously, the most famous example is, I think his name was George Del Mestral or some guy. I'm so sorry, former scientist. You did lots of good work for us. But he was walking his dog and he noticed burrs on himself and his dog. And when he put them under the microscope, he noticed the burrs sticking together and Velcro, was born. So I thought that was really cool. When I think about a warming planet or the heat waves that are happening now, could we look to zebras that have black and white and that's how they cool themselves down? Maybe that becomes a fashion trend someday. I find being inspired by nature to solve some of our challenges. There's some really wild ones that people have come up across, but I'm really passionate about changing the way we do business, but making sure we don't leave the planet out of the equation, both for the impact, but also what can inspire us, because nature and Mother Earth have been here for way longer and they've figured their shit out. So we need to think we should probably look to them to help us be sustainable. So.
Katie, you're such a breath of fresh air. I love this.
I'm a little weird, so
you fit right in.
Yeah, you're in the right place. When I remember when I was first learning about biomimicry in one of the classes I was doing through the UCLA Extension program I did, and sustainability, and I was like, maybe I missed my calling. Like, where can I go work where this is what you do all day? Because it's so cool, and the number of examples of things that have been developed in that space, and why do we think that we know better? Why aren't we looking to nature more? Why aren't we having these conversations with Indigenous communities who live off the earth and know how to only take what they need? There's actually this other book. I know we were talking about kids' books earlier in Greta and the Giants, but there's another book that my daughter picked from the library. I love how she finds these things. That's a book about this bear that wants to be a human. But the very sweet thing about this random book about a bear that wants to be a human is he ends up teaching the girl, he's like found his, person, this girl who's like a Girl Scout or something in the book, but he ends up teaching her how to like live off of nature, and they kind of like learn from each other and do these things together, and they end up having like a dance party in the rain because he teaches her how to like sense that the rain is coming, and she taught him how to have a dance party. I don't know why he's a boy. I don't know why I made that part up, that he's genderless, he's a bear. But anyways, it's like, it's very sweet in that it kind of goes both ways, and the bear teaches the girl about living off the earth and only taking what you need from these things, and how to, that the flowers can be for the ladybugs and the bees. And I don't know, it's funny. It's very cute. But anyways,
it sounds like a way better Giving Tree.
Yes. Because you read the Giving Tree now and you're like, ooh.
Terrible. Awful.
Yeah. Not the same.
Yeah, no.
Also, not complex characters. No character development in that book.
No.
Your point about why don't we talk about the biomimicry or learning from Indigenous cultures that have been living in harmony with nature and so long, it's a big challenge. I think obviously there's a human aspect to it, of some of us think that we're more superior than other species, but even with Western colonization, thinking that there are certain people within our own species
Totally.
that are more superior than others. Environmental racism and injustice is such a hot topic now. I think it actually needs to be brought more to the forefront of the conversation.
Absolutely.
But I think that that's really where it stems, and it stems from much greater than just environmentalism. It's just rampant in our entire society with systemic challenges, particularly just around people and cultures. And it's sad because a lot of those cultures are, for many people, especially in the US, out of sight, out of mind. So if they're not brought to the forefront, you don't even think of to go to them and say, hey, help me understand why you do what you do or how you do what you do. So,
and also why it's so important for social impact and sustainability to be more intertwined. And so often they end up in these separate departments or separate lanes when there is so much intersection, because the human element of sustainability is just as important as the environmental element of sustainability. Because if you don't take care of both at the same time, you're still not going to get there. Anyhow.
Katie, talk to us about an impactful project that you've worked on that you're super proud of. I know.
It's
hard to choose one.
Yeah, I have two. I'll share the first one. You can tell me if you want a more serious one. This one's kind of fun. So it's going to sound very niche and perhaps a little odd, but one of my favorite projects I've ever worked on was with Purina Mills Animal Feed, specifically the side for backyard and commercial farm animals, which is never a brand that I ever thought that I would work on, but I had so much fun and the clients were absolutely wonderful. And to celebrate their 125th anniversary, we focused on their innovative spirit and proved out that by tackling climate change as one of the key challenges in agriculture, that they were continuing to innovate. They weren't kind of your grandpa's animal feed.
Nice.
So a common challenge for backyard flock farmers, chicken farmers, if you will, is flooding. And we, at the time, my family had just gotten chickens, so this was kind of near and dear to my heart.
Oh.
But when it floods, chickens often can't get to higher ground and they drown, which is a real downer. I know. I'm sure we all are thinking about what's happening to the chickens in the rain. But of course, with an increase of flooding due to this irregular weather patterns caused by climate change, this was a problem that was becoming more and more apparent for their consumers, especially in states like Louisiana and Texas and things like that. So we set out a way to fix it. And the good news is chickens do know to go to higher ground in their coop. They won't necessarily, they're kind of stupid. They won't necessarily go to a tree branch, but they will go into their coop when they sense bad weather or danger or things like that. So we made a chicken coop that floats. And we made the coop out of wood from recycled.
Wait, you made a chicken coop that floats?
100%. We made it out of wood that was from recycled feed bags, because turns out most feed bags are burned on site at farms. They're notoriously difficult to recycle. And then we built a prototype. So when the water rises, the coop floats. We tested it. We put it in a pool. There's a great video of it, of all of us being like, will it float? Will it float? Because the wood is heavy. Yes. And it totally does. And we tested it and we made it for Purina customers in need. We gave it to a couple folks in some of those wildly affected areas in Louisiana and Texas. Yeah. And then we released the plans publicly for anyone who wanted to build their own floating chicken coop. So you can still get these. If you have chickens and are struggling with drowning chickens in floods, we have a solution for you.
God, we have to put this in the show notes.
Yeah. So I loved this project, and I loved it because this innovation that was a real problem that we were solving for consumers and, connected to climate change. It came from an ad agency. Of course, we partnered with a brave client to, tackle this hard problem. Yeah. But we made a tangible thing, an innovation that took action versus an awareness campaign, which oftentimes we go to. It wasn't a stunt. It was a real tool that anyone could use. And they could have made money off of it, but by selling it, of course. Yeah. But we released it for anyone to use. So it felt like it was very authentic to the brand. It solved a consumer problem and a climate problem. To me, it was that perfect blend of business, culture, and sustainability. Yeah. And I'm incredibly proud of that project. While super niche and probably only my chicken mama's care, it was an impact for me.
Listen, my grandfather, who was may his memory be a blessing, but he was a pioneer in the poultry space, specifically around PR. And so he's either having a field day or he's rolling around in his grave right now, but this is incredible. And I mean, obviously you must have gotten great PR about it and all that, but I love how authentic this was to the brand, and yeah, curious to know about what sales and what results you saw. This is incredible.
Yeah, great question. I don't have sales results that I remember off the top of my head.
Fair enough.
It was a fair amount of time ago, but I do remember there was a fair amount of conversation. A lot of people were appreciative that we were tackling this challenge. Social, again, very small. Chicken community is very small. Not many consumers in the U.S., but those that are, they're very passionate. So they were very excited. Ag pubs and things like that picked it up, but the Weather Channel picked it up, which I thought was great. So it did get a little bit of a mass exposure to that. And what I would really love, I mean, of course, you only have projects for so long, and it wasn't a stunt. We did allow it to live. But to me, I'm like, we started that. What else could you do with that? The same challenge happens at a commercial level with chickens, with pigs, with all these different, and could you do that on a wider scale? Is there a way to raise some of those barns in a different way when flooding happens? I mean, of course, it depends on how large that flooding is. We're not talking 3 feet here for a large commercial farm, but that chicken coop did float at least 3 or 4 feet in water. So just saying.
It's also interesting. I mean, back to the biomimicry element of it too, right? I remember when I was in Peru going to Lake Titicaca, and the islands are built of reeds. For the rising sea levels, they just continue to build, like everything almost on the islands are built with reeds. And so they just gave us this whole presentation on how they continue to add more reeds to increase as it's like sinking or the flooding is increasing or whatever it is. But just that concept of like, there is actually something there that is learned from nature in a way, right? And so it makes sense that there would be other use cases and what that looks like. And it was also making me think, and this is totally random, and I don't know if they have the same problems as part of Africa because I forget where she's based, but I know someone who works for I don't know exactly what it's called, but it's more than just like a chicken farm, because it's like a collection of chicken farmers in Africa, something like that. But she like works in the business of chicken farming in Africa. And I'm like, do they flood? Do I need to send her these plans? I'm like, spread the word.
There's so many different challenges, and we don't always think about those.
Totally.
Especially with the micro subcultures or the niche consumer groups. But I think that's where, again, going back to Jane Goodall's trust that everyone's working on a piece of the puzzle, it's my small piece of the puzzle, and hopefully I can make an impact, even if it seems like a small group. I think that's important too. All consumers have tensions. My second one, when you asked what's something you're most proud of, is the sustainability tension map. And I'm proud of that because it's another open source tool, so anyone can use it. I should probably think a little bit harder about my own business plan in here, like always giving things away for free. Although I do think that some things shouldn't be gate kept. Climate change is a problem that we're all facing, and solutions should be democratized. So I don't feel too bad about that, but there is a way to make money and still be sustainable.
Totally.
But what I love about this tool is that it closes the green intention action gap. So there was a study from Google that we found that said 4 out of 5 consumers want to take sustainable action, but only 1 out of 5 consumers actually takes action. So clearly there's a gap for consumers. But then on the flip side, IBM released a study recently that said 90% of CEOs say sustainability is a top priority, but there's a lack of quality insights that's holding them back. Right. So a gap for brands of taking action as well. Mm-hmm. So this tension map tool we use internally at Martin to help brands identify consumer trends or barriers or tensions or things like that. One of the core things that we believe is that to get attention, you have to break through, you have to have tension in the work. So starting from a place of problems to help solve those things and make the work more impactful so the brand can have more of an impact both for their business but also in the life of the consumer can be applied to sustainability as well. Typically we use it for brand goals, but sustainability, why not big macro trends like that? And the tension map in particular, it digs deep into what's holding consumers back across around 20 plus tensions. And there's probably hundreds and thousands more. Normally you'll hear people cite convenience or cost as kind of the key roadblock to sustainability, but it's a lot more nuanced than that.
Yeah.
For example, one of my favorite tensions, I know we talked a little bit about Destination Destroyed. That's a personal tension that I care about, but one of my favorites is meat versus manliness. Men are less likely to go vegetarian or vegan, we found. And the big reason holding them back is because there's the perception that masculinity is tied to consuming meat. And I mean, the meat industry is a big contributor to climate change. So we need to find a way to break that societal belief and cultural tension if we want men to take action and reduce meat consumption. So that's a great challenge for a brand. Yeah. What would that look like? What would it look like if some brand like Buffalo Wild Wings took up the mantle to redefine what meat means to men, or make cauliflower wings a badge of honor? Right. I would love to think about that. So I'm really proud of that particular tool, building that with the folks at the Martin Agency, because it can inspire new things that will close that intention action gap, both for consumers and for brands. We've held hackathons, gotten great responses. Other agencies have wanted to use it, and some brands have even used it for their own purposes as well. So the open source tool seems to be working. Again, something I need to think about in my own business plan, but I'm really proud of that one too.
But it's that same piece tremendous. Of getting the behavior change and the like, that was your piece of the puzzle. Yes, it's not being monetized, but also for the larger good of the world, it's helping make it easier for other people to shift with the work that they're doing for a positive way, and to integrate these tools, by integrating within these tools, to be able to shift the way their work is being put out into the world and to be more sustainable in their processes and the work that they're doing. So I think, yes, I'm not a great person on this business model either, because I'm just like, yeah, but let's just get everybody on board. It's fine. Let's get on the train and go. Maybe the train's not a great reference anymore either, but you know what I mean? Yeah, terrible. No, I think that the fact that Martin put that sustainability tension map out is so cool, and love that you're the mind behind that. And seeing that is so interesting. Yes. No, and just the wings point. All the Super Bowl spots that are coming out right now where people are just talking about wings. I mean, can we get a non-chicken wing out in there? Like, come on. And Game Changers was the other big shift, right? When Game Changers came out and redefining masculinity and meat and that connection. So anyway, sorry, Steph. Go.
No.
Hard pivot. How do you get out of that? I don't know.
You don't. No, I was just going to congratulate you on the sustainability tension map, and sure, you're not monetizing it right now, but you are helping so many other people, agencies, companies, and that's going to come back tenfold, obviously, whether it's, new business for Martin or whether it's just inspiring other people to make behavioral changes. It's something we're really excited to help you promote. So
yeah, thank you. Well, and I will say, while it's an open source tool, we are building a practice and discipline within Martin now. That's part of my new role as sustainability director. Nice. Thank you. to help bridge that gap. I think Martin is uniquely positioned to be at the intersection of sustainability, business, and culture. Oftentimes, as we talked about earlier, CSR is relegated to a whole other space, and we forget the cultural element. Right. But to be relevant and to break through and to have impact, you have to marry that. And that's Martin's specialty. So as we look to some of the sustainability challenges, we're getting questions from clients right now in new business, from our current clients, things like, sustainability is a hot topic, one we're concerned about as a business. Should we be talking about it? Or it's a core value. How do we talk about it authentically? Our consumers care about sustainability. Should we create a product for them? Can we authentically talk about it? I'm worried about greenwashing. Yeah. Our CSR efforts are standard. How do we make them cooler? How do we make sustainability cool? So we're building a practice to marry what we do best in terms of breaking into culture, applying a sustainability lens, which I think is unique. So there's, products like sustainability landscape assessments to really answer some of those. We're concerned about a business. Should we be talking about this? If so, how and how do we prioritize? All the way through the funnel of doing tension map workshops with clients that maybe don't know how to use it, but really want to reap the benefits of it, all the way down to, creating new creative ideas around CSR or frankly, business ideas. I don't always think that brands have to tout an eco message to change to a more circular way of thinking or a more sustainable way of doing business. Yeah. There's another great book from, I think her name is Magali Dalma, out of UCLA. It's called The Green Bundle. And she talks about how personal values and environmental values are oftentimes at war. Normally with a theory of change, you tell someone there's a problem and then they change their behavior. That's not always true with environmentalism because there are personal values that are at war. But there are ways to bundle some of these communications, environmental values and personal values like style or health or some of these other key things. She has about 5 in the book that you can communicate about style and not even talk about your environmental efforts and still have an impact and change and connect with a wider group of people, not just kind of true green consumers.
Yeah.
Tesla is a great example of that. Whether you love or hate Elon Musk, they don't talk about their car being an EV all the time. They talk about how cool and sleek and stylish and how it can elevate your status. So I just think that's interesting as we think about connecting with a wider group of brands to take up the mantle of moving from a linear consumption model to a circular model or just different ways of doing business. You don't always have to brand yourself as green. And I think that's a conversation to have with clients, that you can still make an impact. You don't have to necessarily shift your entire position or your entire brand to be eco.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes to all of that. Which actually transitions well into our next question, which is, what's the biggest challenge you're facing right now?
That around, I think it also comes down to measurement. We talk a lot about measurement of goals for how do you measure sustainability. There's a lot of different frameworks out there, especially in certifications. You've got the UN who set out the Sustainable Development Goals, but they didn't really give us how to do it.
Right.
Which is why, thank you, UN. You've definitely given us a structure. It's also why I'm a big fan of organizations like Project Drawdown, who give us a little more tactical ways of thinking. But then you also have, we talked about B Corps before we hopped down the line, and they have specific certifications and standards, but there's no common way of talking about it.
Right.
That's obviously a challenge for sustainability, but that's also a challenge because we haven't married the metrics between sustainability and business and communication and that impact. I mentioned I had troubles finding some of the specific data points around it, and it's because people haven't been integrating and haven't been interdisciplinary. So one of the other things I'm working on as sustainability director is education. I don't necessarily think you have to have a degree in sustainability to be able to have impact as a strategist or a creative. I think you should know some of the principles and some of the frameworks. And I'm very thankful for my education at the University of Virginia. Thank you, Dad. But I think that we need to be able to teach people to apply sustainable thinking to their existing frameworks and mindsets. So I'm building an sustainable advertising 101, if you will, for the agency to go through. Everyone will have some training on greenwashing, environmental justice, sustainable business. And then there will be a certification program to kind of level that up for the expert level to get into circular innovation, circular design, production. Really, I think my big thesis statement for the agency and hopefully the industry at large is you have to put sustainability in the brief. What gets left out of the brief gets left out of the work. Oftentimes we talk about the end result. We talk about production. We talk about decarbonization of media. We've been talking about greenwashing, but I would love to be able to weave it in from the very beginning with sharp insights and have business conversations so that we can not only measure it from the beginning and really talk about success of how did this work, but to be able to marry those three big buckets of sustainability, communication, and business.
Yes.
And I think this is the real vision for monetization is in all of these elements. I think that's really where you have that opportunity for the business side of the tools that you're putting out in the world as well, because
I know.
Well, that's how I sold it to
very
the agency.
much needed.
So
I
hope, Kristen Cavallo, if you're listening, I promise I'm working on it.
It would be a dream for
not only
Kristen
that, it feels like this is something tangible that you can sell to other agencies as well, even being the thought leader here, or just to other creatives. I mean, like, I personally don't have a sustainability degree like Alana does and you do, but I know social impact, and I have been personally wanting to do more in the sustainability space. So like being able to have this as an offer, I think would be incredible. So kudos and congratulations, because this is.
I got a lot of work ahead of me, but the good news is I think we're starting to see the trends in business. It's been happening for a while, but it's being accelerated right now. I think COVID actually helped us. Yeah, it has to. I mean, the whole half the reason I started the ERG, the green team in the very beginning at Martin was because I read that article, 12 Years to Save the World, and I freaked out. I'm pretty sure we're 6 years in. How are we doing? So
not great.
Not great.
Not to be doom and gloom,
still have
because we need
time.
the positive side, but.
Yeah, well, but Charles Kettering says a problem well stated is a problem well solved. So we have to dig into the problems and the
100%.
the growth and the sad. So, but I agree. I still have very significant high hopes for where we can go. And I'm excited by the people who are not necessarily roadblocking people because of education or background or things like that. I think we have to come with diverse perspectives from and on the table, both people, but also educational backgrounds. And if then I can layer in a little bit of extra thinking to help amplify what people already think, just so that we can all be on the same page and speak the same language. Great. I'll do my part as much as I can, and then watch other people run with it and make far greater innovations and creative campaigns and solve the world problems. Because again, delusional ambition for all of us, advertising will save the world.
It takes all of us. And if advertising is the most skilled industry to shift behavior, and we can sell people things they don't need, the least we can do is sell people solutions for climate change and get them working in the right direction. So,
right. If we cause the problem, like you said, we need to
shift
be
consumer
part of the
habits.
solution.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, listen, I know we could talk all day, but before we jump into the campaign that you've brought us, we're going to quickly review our criteria, both for you, Katie, and for our listeners. So the first thing we look at is alignment.
Next is partnerships.
Call to action and transparency.
Engagement.
And lastly, optimization and, as you mentioned, amplification.
Yes. So on that note, Katie, if you can please tell us about the campaign you brought today and give us a little, for anyone who's not watching it live, obviously, as they're listening, give a little description of the actual creative as well, so we can understand not just the overall concept, but what the visual entails.
Sure. So it's not necessarily at one spot. It just came out in April in 2023. Coach created Coachtopia, which was kind of their sustainability environmental arm to try and think about their production and their products differently, which I thought was great from a really large legacy brand to be thinking about their business differently. Yeah. And then just a day or so ago, they launched the circular docu-series. It's called The Road to Circularity. And it's a series of episodes that really digs into what they're doing behind in their production houses, which I think is incredibly relevant given the negative press that Shein, which I have my own personal thoughts about that, but that Shein got when they had some people go in and find out some not so nice things that were happening behind the scenes. I think it's great to see a brand like Coach be so transparent and talk about circularity and what the challenges are with it, but also what they're doing to try and address those things. So again, it's not necessarily a one specific campaign. It seems like this is a business practice, but they're starting to put pretty strong communication out. I'm excited to watch more of the episodes. I watched the first one just yesterday when it launched, and it first talked about the specifics of taking scraps of the leather and the different materials that they use and creating new products. So really focusing on the waste and pollution that the fashion industry struggles with. And I think they've done a nice job of making it approachable, not taking too scientific of an approach, yet also speaking to those who care about this.
I love that. And,
I'm so excited to watch it because I haven't seen it yet.
Such a problem.
The first episode is called
Making the Waste.
The Road to Circular. Yeah, Making the Waste.
The interesting thing too, right? If you can break through in some of those really well-known places, then the impact you can have on such a large scale, but also why it's so important for Coach, right? Coach is such a recognizable brand. So the fact that they're having these conversations. There's somebody I went to, related to this first video on the leather scraps. Someone I went to college with has a company called Higher Goods, which she's been using for years, making bags out of these leather scraps for different companies. So there's limited editions of things because it's based on the scraps she's able to get her hands on. But instead of using creating new products from fresh leather, fresh materials every time. She's built her business around this for years. So it's nice to see that. It seems like also it often, I forget who we were talking about this with or where I was having this conversation, but sometimes it's these smaller companies. Oh, it was with Sean and Sarah. But so often they, it takes some of these smaller companies to have the innovation ideas first, but they can't reach it necessarily at the same scale. And then larger companies like Coach can come in and adopt these practices and highlight the issue on a grander scale and actually implement them on a bigger scale, which maximizes the impact of what they're able to do because they have much larger reach, obviously. So it's awesome to see that they're doing that. Sorry, and I say all this without obviously having watched the whole thing yet, which I need to do, but I'm very excited to dig in and see this.
No, this is great. And I love how it's integrating the community activation element of it as well, right? Like it's from what it sounds like, they're working with students, they're working with obviously the people in the factories, but also really conscious of the impact that they're making, both in their products, but also in the community as a whole.
That was something in that first episode, they talk about how they're taking some of the traditional cultural practices and pairing it with some of the modern innovation practices that Coach is known for. And when I think about globalization, that's the thing that usually gets lost. We all start to have a cookie cutter mass way of doing something, whether it's because of efficiency or, again, this aspirational model or world that we've built, that we all feel like we have to be a part of culture and kind of mainstream. But here they are really trying to lean into some of the traditional practices and marrying that and not lose some of the things that make, and the first episode is set in one of their factories in India. And they're trying to take some specific cultural practices from India and marry that into how they're making their products, which I think, again, when I think about globalization, there's so many different models for how we're going to show up in the world. But the small is beautiful model, I think, is wonderful. And a lot of that is maintaining the cultural knowledge, even as we're starting to grow and have global expansion, to make sure we don't lose some of those things, not only from, I think, a diversity and interesting, like I want to have an interesting world. I don't want to go to a potluck with only mac and cheese, but also from a just from an innovation standpoint, you can't lose some of those things because those are the things that are fueling us forward. One of the things, to your point about who we're connecting with, part of your criteria was around partnerships, whether it's talent or nonprofit or other companies. I'd like to see them expand beyond just Coach. Yes. As I think about Gen Z and what they care about, they certainly care about transparency and understanding. And I think this series does really well with that. But I'd also love to start seeing them tap into some of the subcultural niches and do some collabs with other folks that Gen Z cares about. So that'll break them out from just kind of these true green consumers who do care about this. And this docuseries addresses that very well. If you are into sustainability, there's some really interesting things that you can learn about the circular way of production and the circular economy in general. But then I think bringing it a little bit more mainstream and bringing it out of just the conversation of circularity, but pairing that to things that Gen Z cares about, whether it's, Lush does this really well. They do a lot of collabs. They have Super Mario. They did Barbie. They've done SpongeBob. They've connected with these subculture interests and done some really interesting collabs, but they're a completely organic and very sustainable company. And I love that they've been able to break out and make that more mainstream. So I think seeing Coach's scalability as well as then really tapping into subcultures to be able to make this message even more sticky is something I'm looking forward to. And I would love to hear from, did you say Maya you have on the podcast soon?
Yes.
Ask her about
Maya
it.
Irvin
we
is coming
will.
onto the podcast from June.
Yeah.
The
I will definitely tune into that.
Behind Coachtopia. So we're very excited. And this is
very cool.
This is a great tee up. So thank you so much for bringing this, Katie. So, okay. Obviously, this is a little different than some of the creative that we look at, and we love it. But, in terms of alignment, obviously Impact is aligned with the brand values and goals here, right? Coach wants to sell more product. They also want to share their core values and how they are learning from their mistakes in the past and really trying to solve this circular fashion problem. So yeah, I would say that's pretty aligned. What do you both think? Check. Did we do
Check.
it? Okay.
Yeah. Well, and they're making, instead of just saying we now have this, Coachtopia and we're selling secondhand, or I'm sorry, I've not done my research yet on any of this. I haven't read these articles in detail, but they're not just talking about, a lot of, brands, I think, like, launch these initiatives and are just saying like, oh, we're doing this new thing now, or they could just sit there and say, we're going to use existing product and keep these scraps from going into the landfill and whatever. But then showing that process makes it interesting. And so they're adding this to their values, obviously, right? And then taking that a step further, I think, is really interesting as well. They don't have any, sorry, now I'm jumping ahead. They don't have any talent partnerships, or do they have any talent partnerships that they started as they launched this? Because Coach does do a lot of talent and influencer partnerships in the rest of their work sometimes, don't they? I feel like all fashion brands do, but maybe I made that up.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like there's no talent, quote unquote, featured in this docuseries, but
sorry, I lied.
I'm
Sustainable fashion advocate. There is a person. So I guess if you're attuned to sustainable fashion, you would know who Aditi Meyer. I hope I said her name correctly.
And I think that to me is, again, as I think about the name of your podcast, Missed Opportunities for Good, I think they're speaking to the right consumers that care about this. Yeah. I hope they don't miss this opportunity to connect with a wider group and connect with more mainstream or subcultural talent to help get this message out in a little bit more of a relevant way. I was interested because I geek out about the circular economy, but I can imagine if I sent this to a friend, they might be like, oh, that's nice. I appreciate Coach. But if there was something else sticky that was connected to another interest of theirs beyond just sustainability, I think it'd be even more impactful.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then, there's no real nonprofit partnership necessarily, but I think that the impact is still very much there and prevalent. And there's so much that can be done without a nonprofit as part of this too, right?
Well, there's so many other pieces that, especially with anything created in a factory setting, right? Or in this fast fashion landscape, even though it's not quite as fast fashion machine, but in the same way that if you're an agriculture company, like, are you investing in the farmers and their welfare? Then to the point that this is using some local cultural customs in terms of how they're integrating these materials into the products. Are they supporting the local economies where their factories are made? And in that, are they paying fair wages for their workers? Are they taking care of them? Like, what is the people side of that? Almost doesn't necessarily have to be a nonprofit, but how are they supporting the local economy and ecosystem of which they are hiring these people? And if they are pulling from their local skill set and customs, like making sure that that's happening in a authentic way, and they're not, why can't I think of the word? Misappropriation. Yeah. That there's, and I obviously haven't looked at the details of their styles, but like, there's no cultural misappropriation happening in the work they're doing, or things like that, where they're destroying the local economy to use their scraps to sell more bags still, right? Like, there's still all those elements that I don't know what the history and backstory of that is, and I'm sure they're being mindful of that, but just knowing that hopefully they are being mindful of all of those things in the process as well.
I think that's a great point, just in communication in general, but particularly when a brand puts out sustainable messaging in whatever form or fashion that is. In this case, they're focusing on the waste of fashion. There's always more questions that come up. And obviously lots of brands are afraid of greenwashing because they might say one thing and then you uncover something else. Right. And to your point, hopefully they're not doing that. And I haven't dug in enough. What I liked about this was they were speaking to a specific audience. And I think greenwashing is a bit of a gray area to some extent, which green, gray, who's to say? But it's sometimes just because of the communication and the audience that's receiving it. So you, as a more considered consumer, immediately thought about those other things. I also had immediate thoughts of, I'm so glad they're tackling the waste side of things, but they're still making a bunch of new products and trying to sell new seasonal things. Could they have thought about it differently? Is this greenwashing? No, I don't think it is by any means.
Right.
But I do think that those are the kinds of things that you have to consider when you're willing to put a message out, whether it's transparency or, you have the call to action, and transparency is your third criteria. I think this meets that very, very well. But I'm still, as a more considered consumer, I question the transparency a little bit more than probably someone else. So I think that as I think about greenwashing, and we guide our clients on this as well, audience is one of the key things that you have to look at as you're thinking about it. And you may end up still being called greenwashing because someone out there is going to have a different opinion. But I was pleased to see they did a great job, I thought, in this particular series, and it was very educational and very transparent.
Yeah, and I think there's that balance too, right? Where it's almost like it's their first initiative into this space. So yes, you have to give brands grace for starting somewhere. They're doing something. And so that's really important. They're being transparent about their journey to get there. So, it'll be interesting to see what conversations continue to exist on that side, which also obviously addresses the transparency. But then, yes, when you go to their website and you look at how obvious it is that this is even in existence, like it's not even on the homepage, and even when you get into the pages where it does start talking about it, they're still selling you full price seasonal products right underneath it. So where ultimately that balance comes into for any brand and how you balance the sustainable options versus the non-sustainable options and the meaning of all of that, I think is always really interesting to see and how that plays out and then how it evolves, because this is a new initiative for them, right? So how this evolves over the next year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years will also be really interesting to follow.
Mm-hmm. Apple had the same problem, which I know you guys talked about previously on this podcast, of the carbon neutral watch.
Yeah,
right.
I actually think that was a great starting place. It's one of the better sustainable communications I've seen from 2023.
Agreed, yeah.
It opened up a lot of questions for me as a more considered consumer, but I thought that was a good starting place, and it was scalable and it was approachable. It definitely opened up a lot more questions, but I was glad that they were able to poke fun at themselves a little bit and yet also be transparent about where they were in their journey. This was a nice way to see Coach doing something similarly. Yep. Personally, I would like to see them do, again, something a little more entertaining as we get into engaging and amplifying this. Yeah. I think this is a perfect start, and it gives the backbone of what they need, and now they can grow beyond that. And hopefully, to your point, they're scaling it beyond just one line of products that's for their eco-consumer. But you got to start somewhere, and I will never shame a brand for taking that first step because it's hard, especially at scale. And for a large company like this, I'm proud of them.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. And let the record show that they do have Coachtopia. It's at the bottom. It's at like the very bottom of their homepage. But again, they're starting somewhere. And
that's okay. Digital timelines for UX usually are significantly longer. So I give the website team a little grace.
Yes, for sure. For sure. No, I think this is great. And, I would be very curious to know if there is an employee engagement standpoint of, like a, not standpoint, but some sort of either education element involved, or how they're really bringing, maybe the US team into this, or some of their other teams that aren't based in India, and how are they educating them around what they've learned, or what this process,
or even the sales teams, like bringing in
right
your salespeople who are working in store so that they're educated in how and why to be able to push for some of these products versus your standard seasonal run-of-the-mill products that, consumers have grown to expect. But I think, and I remember this coming up at Social Innovation Summit when I met somebody who worked on the Sephora social impact team. And it was like, they had so many social impact initiatives that their salespeople aren't even educated in all of the things that are happening. And I think that, you could look at some of these sort of brand opportunities where you do have a lot of people still shopping in store, of educating your voice in store, having your salespeople knowing about this type of work that you're doing and the importance of them being educated on these programs. And like, how cool if you're a top salesperson, you get to go visit this factory and see this work being done and learn about, you know, the different techniques that are being used to save the scraps. And that person can come back to, you know, the store on Rodeo Drive. I don't even know if that's where they're located in LA, but whatever, you know, like go and in store, they're like, oh my God, I just got back. And the coolest thing that we're doing, I got to see it in person. And this is what we're doing with the scraps. Like, you should totally buy this bag because how cool is this is what happens. And having that firsthand knowledge, I'm sure can only help a salesperson sell more products, right? So being able to that point, making it more entertaining, not just for consumers, but even for your own salespeople and employees working across the company to be able to then leverage that to consumers. And then obviously the community engagement and customer piece call to action, we kind of talked about that. Plus they have their resale, which isn't, I guess, directly related to the Coachtopia piece, but they also have a resale component to their company now too, right? Which is more consumer facing or customer engagement facing, I guess.
Which is great because so many brands, you know, slash their bags, slash all sorts of things and not allow others to resell them or any sorts of things like that. So the fact that they're facilitating some of that circularness and leaning into that, I appreciate that. Coach also has a problem with counterfeits. So I'd be super curious how Coachtopia is going to tackle that challenge from a business perspective as well as a sustainable one.
I mean, now that would be an interesting episode of the docuseries.
Right?
Yeah. Take all the counterfeits and use it to incorporate into their own bags.
Yes.
Just like this stealth diving into where those are coming from and almost uncovering, like, you think you want to buy a counterfeit, but look at the backstory of what's happening with that over there. Think again.
Yeah,
right?
I think there's a whole underbelly, but also potential innovation opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, there 100%. It is. We figured out the missed opportunity for good.
Yeah, I mean, I guess on that note, are there any other missed opportunities for good that we want to call out that we can put forth to Maya, her and the others at Juve continue to work on this? Is there anything else? I mean, very rarely, I guess we know someone who's directly working on something that has just begun and has a future that we can pass along information directly. But
no more than I called out. Yeah, the talent piece, I think, and connecting to subcultures is one I'm sure they're thinking about, but I'm very curious about.
Yeah.
And then I do like our little new opportunity.
Why not?
The counterfeit culture.
Yeah.
I think those two things would be interesting to learn more about. So, well, thanks for the conversation on this particular one.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
So thank you so much for the conversation on this one. This was fun, and I can't wait to be friends with you all. This has been so fun, and I hope we definitely keep in touch.
Yeah,
yes,
Katie,
absolutely.
Thank you so much for
Katie. We'll all be working for you one day. So,
yeah.
Oh no, I think I need like-minded partners, so I'll probably hit you all up for various things in the future here.
I was just going to say also, though, the one other missed opportunity thing that I was going to bring up based on the talent piece of it as well. And like, given that it's award season, in seeing some of the conversations around the award shows again, seeing these conversations about making reusable fashion popular on the red carpet so that people are more inclined, right? And so there was an article that I saw that was talking about people reusing pieces of previous dresses or rewearing previous dresses or things like that. But then what an opportunity for a coach to put this type of product, the Coachtopia products, on the red carpet with somebody going to an award show to subtly be getting that conversation started. If there is, people who are known to be advocates for reuse, rewear, circular economy, repurposing pieces, to be able to put that sort of fashion on the runway. And I was reading an article this morning, an interview with Julie Roberts, and obviously it's, fashion. They quote everything that they're wearing. And it was like the sustainable wool, this, and the organic cotton, this, like, is it also the repurposed leather, blah, blah, blah from Coach? Like,
right. So
I think there's like, in this fashion space, there's obviously plenty of exposure opportunities. So are they utilizing those as well to get this message out there beyond the initial consumers? That was all I was going to say.
Thank you so much, Katie, for helping us shine a light and learn from those who are doing it well and reduce the missed opportunities for good.
We want to hear from you. Let us know. What campaigns are you seeing that are doing it well? Who would you like to see us interview? And what campaign would you like us to audit?
Thank you so much for joining us, you listeners, on our mission to revolutionize the industry that we love.
Missed Opportunities for Good is a production of Alliance for Impact and Love of Good.